I've got another question in chat here asking, besides the Calgary and Banff corridor, are there any more concrete developments in the works that you know of?
Uh, no, I mean, I wouldn't even say I'd be kind of not to dismiss what they're doing, but I don't think like the Calgary Banff is probably as concrete as it's going to get. Uh, I've done a lot of data analysis because I've done a lot of data analysis to doing the regional rail, and I don't want the first one to be a white elephant, so to speak. It's going to, if the first one is a white elephant and only gets used at weekends and during the week, there is nobody riding the train, people will start to question, well, is rail really the answer? I know it's a difficult subject to broach, but I would consider the Calgary Banff corridor, the Banff train, to be more something similar to the Winter Park Express that runs out of Denver to Winter Park in Colorado. They only run that train Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, and it leaves Denver in the morning, stays at Winter Park during the day, and then leaves Winter Park in the evening to get back into Denver. I think that would be a far more economical and efficient use of a passenger rail system between Calgary and Banff, because I go skiing, and if you want to go skiing when no one's around, you go in the week because nobody's there. If you want, everybody goes to the mountains at weekends, except for during the summer. The summer is the anomaly. There's in the Banff long-term transportation study, I haven't got the notes in front of me, but there's 10 days where passenger vehicles are over 10,000 vehicles a day into Banff, and all of them occur during the summer. But there's really only it's like 6 weekends in the summer, so there are a lot of other days, like a Friday or maybe a Monday, where there's a lot of people going to Banff. And yes, there is a lot of people that go to Banff, but they go at specific times, they go at specific days, and I fear that the Calgary Banff may be a white elephant that may set passenger rail traffic options back maybe decades or maybe not at all. It's my fear. I hope it doesn't happen. And yes, ultimately, a Calgary Banff is a great idea and it's a fantastic thing that needs to be done. But my only question is it really the start point? Could a more efficient means be done starting in Airdrie, a commuter service from Airdrie into Calgary, Monday to Friday, and then at weekends you can send those trains out to Banff? Would that not be a more efficient use of that corridor?
Yeah, I've heard a little bit of that as well, the discussion, because Airdrie's so close and you're kind of coming up from the airport anyways. So there's that possibility to link it in there.
Yeah, I'm currently working on a gravity model for the Calgary Edmonton corridor,
Mm-hmm.
and I have the gravity model shows 3,000 people a day would catch a train from Airdrie into Calgary.
Yeah, it's quite significant. Like I know
Oh,
so
it
many
is, it
people.
is, it is. Yeah, before the pandemic, I mean, there was so many cars. That was just I would say that was a nightmare commute. Anybody who lived in Airdrie, it was a nightmare commute to come into downtown Calgary. They had 5 buses and all the buses were full. The buses take 75 people. You have a guaranteed ridership of in the 500s. And just by the gravity model says over 3,000 people would travel from Airdrie into Calgary.
Yeah, that is really significant and really shows the potential for that close range rail.
Yeah.
Edward, you have had your hand up there. If you want to speak live to it, feel free.
Thank you. Thanks for that reaction. The one thing I think they're doing, because all you're saying, I think it sounds really good, but the biggest issue I see is that CN and CP, they own the rails, and until now they're having very reluctant to share with anybody else, right? That's a known issue. And the one thing that the Banff Calgary corridor, at least they acknowledge that, say, well, we need to simply invest in putting an additional rail in the same corridor. Is it something you would foresee for other rails as well? Basically, say Calgary Edmonton, we simply need to put an extra track next to the existing one to actually be able to run the passenger rail so it doesn't get derailed by freight trains?
There would need to be enhancements. My discussions with CP, they want to see enhancements. They don't want to see any conflict with their freight movements. And so you would automatically put down a second track. You would. Any track that's put into the right of way, Canadian Pacific right of way, has to be built to Canadian Pacific standards and specifications, which means it needs to be freight compatible. So you effectively create a twin line. I have an article, I wrote something up when they came up with this a couple of years ago. And it's just a case of, okay, so if you're putting another line down next to the existing line, but you're going to put passing points for the passengers and you're having passing points for the freight, but the passenger is built to Canadian Pacific standards and freight specifications. So the platforms have to be a certain distance from the railhead, all bridges have to be a certain height off the track, etc., etc. Why not just run freight compatible rolling stock, and then instead of having 32 trains a day, as is what is currently the capacity on the main line and on Canadian Pacific main line, you could actually get over, I think it's like 290 trains a day just by twinning the line. It doesn't double the capacity of the line, because doubling the capacity of the line would just mean a train every 45 minutes in either direction. And with technology, you can bring that down to not just half an hour or 20 minutes. You could bring it down to 10 minutes or even less. A train every 10 minutes, even a freight train every 10 minutes, gives you a capacity of over 290 trains per day.
So you're saying when you twin the lines, you basically also improve the capacity for CP itself.
Yes, you do. So instead of this is the other question that I have on the Calgary Banff rail system. They've almost gone. It's almost as if they went to Europe, rode a train. Oh, this is a fantastic thing. Let's have something like this in going from Calgary to Banff. And they're just like, well, you can't use that. Canadian Pacific just said, no, you can't run passenger trains on our track. Okay, then we'll build a separated line. Well, okay, if you're going to build a separated line, you have to build it to our standards and specifications so that we can run a freight train on it when you're not running passenger trains. And so you see the logic coming in, and it's just a case of, okay, well, why don't you just twin the line, use the VIA, the new rolling stock that VIA has just bought from Siemens. Just put that on the line and start running that. Why do we have to go through this convoluted process of going around the houses when you could have just gone, we're going to make enhancements to the line. We're going to share the track. We're making enhancements. We're not going to have any conflicts because we're only going to run 4 trains a day or maybe just 2 trains a day. And so there's not going to be much conflicts. We'll put additional passing points in. In the Calgary Independent Corridor, you're going to have a lot more trains. We're looking at having almost a train every hour, maybe an hour, every an hour and a half. You're going to want to have a twin track. You're going to want to straighten the track. You're going to want to not have any conflicts, get as fast as possible, as reliable as possible. I don't want to have any delays on the passenger services. So therefore, I don't want to have any conflicts with freight. So I'm going to put something in that's not going to have any conflicts. So there's no conflicts with freight. Then the freight moves faster as well. There are so many unquantifiable benefits. You put a passenger train service in, you increase the speed of the track, you increase the capacity of the track, which just snowballs into better and better and better for across the board, not just passengers, freight and all sorts of other things. There's a big issue in the corridor with noise because the crossings are so old. There are previous technologies. There's no fencing, there's no proper gates, so the trains have to blow their horns. If you upgrade the track and you enhance the crossings, you can eliminate noise. You have noise cessation, horn cessations of the trains, which makes it quieter for the residents.
You'll get the dinging of the bells back, but that's a lot less than the horns for sure. Is CP open to this at all? You say you're talking to CP already, but how far along are those discussions?
Thomas, it's Vern. I'll be real quick. A little background for me is I, for 7 years, was responsible for all the track maintenance, anything painted yellow above the rail. I still have very close ties with CP. In fact, reached out to a gentleman who's responsible for all the signals crossings in Alberta. He's given Thomas and I a detailed breakdown of the costing to upgrade all the rail crossings. And more importantly, we also had very good discussion for me. I had a 2-hour discussion with him, and he sees great benefit, as well as others in the industry I've spoken to. Currently, there's a 4 to 5 hour track window that allows CP to go in, trade, exchange ties. As soon as our parallel track is in place, we could actually run trains between, let's say, 1 in the morning and 5 in the morning, one way, to clear out their backlog of grain, their unit trains, which would be like potash or grain, etc., that are going in one direction, and allow them to have a 10 to 12 hour track block, which will increase their efficiency by 500%. Currently, the ramp up and ramp down times is roughly 2 hours. They have a 4 hour track block, and they're paying persons 10-hour days, and they're getting 3 to 4 hours of work out of them. So you can see the dramatic improvement we can provide to the bottom line of CP.
So is this like an active discussion, or are these guys planning anything, or?
No, they're not against it, but they're not necessarily for it. So they're not enthusiastic about it. But if we can find the money to do the track enhancements, then they're not going to, theoretically, they're not going to stand in the way. There may be a whole load of issues. They'll have a whole load of standards and specifications and requirements and this, that, and the other in order to do it. So we haven't got into those negotiations yet.
So what kind of money are we talking here? Like talking Edmonton, Calgary, 2 billion, 5?
For my cost estimates, to twin the entire corridor between Calgary and Edmonton, you're looking at about $2.5 billion.
That's actually very reasonable.
Yes, considering that there's a plan for the Airdrie bypass. There's a road plan known as the Airdrie bypass, which is going to send the QE2 around the outside to the east of Airdrie and tie into Stony Trail in the northeast corner. That's the plan. The cost estimate for that is in the order of $5 billion.
And all it does is actually induce more car travel.
Yeah.
Because induced demand goes 2 ways, right? Like you build more concrete, you get more cars. But build trains, you get the same thing. Like you will actually take cars off the road, and actually, I think that's why frequency is important. But anyway.
No, the ultimate aim is to twin the track from Calgary to Edmonton, increase the frequency, increase the speed, increase the reliability, increase the efficiency. Do that. That's the ultimate goal. Whether that's the start point, whether we can start with a few trains and just have them running up and down, do additional passing points. Each station would actually effectively act as a passing point, because the passenger train would stop in the station and allow people to get on and off, and the freight train going in the opposite direction could go past on the other track. There's a number of different ways to getting it started. We're looking for some financial backing. Once we get that financial backing that's acceptable to Canadian Pacific, we can enter into deeper negotiations and start really hammering those kind of issues out.
Thomas, great job also addressing a number of the other questions we had in comments there. I think you summed up a good 3 or 4 of them all in the last discussion there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I actually haven't got the chat open, so I don't know what people are saying.
So. You literally went through the questions that were in the chat in order. So thank you. That was actually very impressive. I thought you were reading the chat when I was going through there.